Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about how to please God. If you have been watching my channel for a while, then you have probably heard me say that Satan is the god of religion. And although that is true, there is one exception to that rule that is spoken of many times throughout the Bible. At James chapter 1 and verse 27, every detail of what God requires of man is spelled out in no uncertain terms. According to the King James Version of the Bible, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. In modern English, a better translation of this verse might be, in the presence of God our Father, the only religion that is pure and undefiled is this: to visit orphans and widows when they are suffering hardship, and to keep from being contaminated by civilization. These instructions seem simple enough, and millions worldwide claim to espouse the ideals that are encapsulated by this very clear, easy to understand, undeniable verse. And yet, the vast majority of those millions at the same time espouse the very teachings that James called the contamination of civilization. There is no way around the fact that James listed no other requirements for salvation, and yet most people who put their faith in James chapter 1 and verse 27 also put their faith in religions that are defined by requirements often in direct opposition to this verse, as well as other religions that put their faith in James chapter 1 and verse 27. When Jesus was alive on earth, there was only one group of people that were fully dedicated to doing God's will. The Bible makes it more than clear that if we are to have any hope of being pleasing to God, our only option would be to imitate the faith of this seemingly insignificant people. The religion practiced by this small group would be the only religion that God has ever approved of, and in the end will be the religion of every person who receives the privilege of entering into God's kingdom. Everyone in the Western world is familiar with the story of mankind's fall from grace. The story, as told by the churches, has most people confused. A large percentage of those who know the story think that it is nothing more than an ancient myth, a work of fiction. But believe it or not, nearly every ancient people that left written records of their existence included in their writings stories mirroring the one found in our Western world's Bible. Throughout the earth, stories of humans in the ancient past rejecting God's law in an attempt to become gods themselves are the foundation of every culture that exists today. The system that modern societies are governed by is called civilization. This aspect of human society is so firmly established that there are few people who would question its legitimacy. Every religion on the earth teaches that only bad people would take a stand against civilization's precepts. Even the religion of science, which teaches that humans evolved from lower life forms, upholds civilization as the ultimate goal of the evolutionary process. Over the course of human history, nearly everyone alive has become assimilated into Satan's social order. But around the world there is a group that to this day openly struggles against civilization's precepts. When Jesus was on the earth, he spoke of this group with great reverence. In fact, when his own apostles attempted to drive this people away, Jesus very clearly declared that unless someone would follow their example, they would have no hope of entering into the kingdom of heaven. In the ancient past, this group was called Paidion. Most English Bibles translate this word as small child, but this is somewhat misleading. In our culture, this word would more accurately be translated as baby. At Luke chapter 1 and verse 59, John the Baptizer was called Paidion when he was circumcised at 8 days old. At Luke chapter 2 and verse 21, the same word is used to describe Jesus when he was 8 days old. The word Paidion is used 51 times in the Greek portion of the Bible, and it does not appear to ever be used to describe any child older than what we would consider an infant in modern English. The ancient Greek word Paidion is formed from the word pais, which is very similar in meaning. At Matthew chapter 2 and verse 16, Herod ordered that all children 2 years old and younger be slaughtered. It is the word pais that is used in this verse. Pais itself is formed from the ancient Greek word paio, which means strike, slap, or spank. In fact, as written in the ancient Greek, the word paidion, which means baby, could also mean one who requires chastisement. It is this quality that Jesus was speaking of at Matthew chapter 18 and verse 3 when he said, "Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." Jesus was not saying that we needed to be chastised in order to enter into the kingdom of heaven. He was saying that we needed to return to how we were before being chastised. In the Star Wars films, Hollywood acknowledges the connection between the word Paidion and indoctrination. Those in training to be Jedi warriors are called Padawan, which is likely the proper pronunciation of the Greek word Paidion. The Jedi warriors of the Star Wars films were modeled after the Nephilim spoken of at Genesis chapter 6 and verse 4. Those heroes of old, civilization's mighty men of renown. Unlike adults that have been beaten into conformity with Satan's empire, babies live solely by instinct. Citizens of the empire will gobble down unnatural agricultural products, including meat, as if it is what they were designed to do. Babies will cry, spit, and even vomit when forced to consume such things. No other species on this planet has ever developed the ability to convert non-food items into food. Adults will willingly remove hair and pay large sums of money to have hair removed from their bodies, and even persecute those that don't remove their hair. Head hair, facial hair, pubic hair, underarm hair, leg hair. When asked why they do so, many will tell you that it is unnatural to grow hair and that hair is dirty. Babies, on the other hand, will often cry and struggle against having to endure a haircut. Adults will expend vast resources on procuring and maintaining clothing. Those who do not wear the right clothing or enough clothing often are forced to endure harsh treatment at the hands of others. In some countries, women who do not wear enough clothing are tortured and even executed. Babies, once again, will often cry and attempt to remove the clothing that adults force them to wear. Without even thinking about it, babies are obedient to God's law. But since part of that law is to honor your father and mother, all babies will eventually lose the struggle and become citizens. Some will begrudgingly conform as little as possible in order to get by, while others fully immerse themselves into every aspect of this pyramid scheme called civilization. The second group, over the course of their lifetimes, will eventually ascend to become what the Bible calls the builders. The example set by this small group is not insignificant. For thousands of years, Satan's cults have acknowledged the innocence of children, just not in any honest fashion. Most so-called Christians believe that babies are good because they don't engage in sexual activity, or because they don't gamble, or cuss, or listen to loud music. The thousands of conflicting religions under Satan's control are all based on subterfuge. The religion that God considers to be pure and undefiled is solidly based on truth. Each and every one of Satan's cults is designed to support the belief that it is better to be a god than it is to be obedient to the true God, or as declared by the God of religion at Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, "In the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Something that babies hate more than clothing, more than agricultural products, even more than getting a haircut, is going to church. Babies absolutely hate going to church. We would be wise to follow the examples set by this extraordinary group of people who still to this day struggle against participating in the disgusting filth of civilization. If you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.